Jake Morrison knew he was going to die. The red warning lights on his control panel blinked faster and faster. His small mining ship shook like a toy in a child's hands. The engines had stopped working 3 hours ago, and now the air was getting thin. He looked out the window at the empty space around him. Stars dotted the black sky like tiny diamonds, but they offered no help. Jake was alone, millions of miles from Earth or any human colony. His radio was broken. No one knew where he was. The ship grew colder by the minute. Jake pulled his jacket, tighter around his body. His breath came out in small white clouds. The heating system had failed along with everything else. Soon, the cold would kill him if the lack of air did not do it first. Jake thought about his sister back on Earth. He had promised to come home for her wedding next month. Now she would wait for him forever. He thought about his job at the mining company. They would mark him as missing, then dead. Another worker lost in the dangerous work of finding metals in space. His ship had been mining rocks near a small planet when everything went wrong. The engine made a loud noise, then stopped. Black smoke filled the cabin. Jake had put on his emergency mask and tried to fix the problem, but the damage was too bad. Now he floated helplessly through space. The air meter showed almost empty. Jake felt dizzy and tired. His hand shook as he tried one more time to send a distress signal. Nothing worked. The radio stayed silent. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. At least dying in space would be quiet and peaceful. Then something appeared on his broken radar screen. A small green dot moved toward his ship. Jake sat up straight and looked out the window. At first he saw nothing. Then a shape moved between the stars. It was too far away to see clearly, but it was definitely a ship. Jake's heart beat faster. Maybe someone had heard his radio calls before it broke. Maybe a rescue ship was coming. He tried to send another signal, but his radio was still dead. All he could do was wait and hope. The ship came closer. Jake could see it better now, and his hope turned to confusion. This was not a human ship. It was too smooth, too curved. Human ships were built like boxes with engines attached. This ship looked like it had grown instead of being built. Its surface was dark green and seemed to move like living skin. Fear mixed with hope in Jake's chest. Humans had never met aliens before. Stories and movies talked about them, but no one had ever seen real ones. If this was an alien ship, Jake did not know if they would help him or hurt him. The alien ship moved close to Jake's broken vessel. It was much bigger than his mining ship. Lights ran along its sides like glowing veins. Jake watched as a beam of light came from the alien ship and touched his own. His ship stopped shaking. The alien beam was holding him steady. Inside the alien ship, Captain Zarathel looked at the dying human vessel on her screen. Her crew stood around her, all talking, at once in their own language. Most of them thought she should leave the human to die. Their people had rules about not talking to other species. But Zarathel could see the human inside the ship through her sensors. He was young and scared and had only minutes to live. Zarathel had dark green skin covered in small scales. Her eyes were large and golden. She was tall and strong, built for command. She had been captain of this ship for 10 years and had never broken the rules before. But something about the dying human made her want to help. Her second officer, Tekvar, spoke in their language. "Captain, we should not interfere. The High Council forbids contact with primitive species." Zarathel looked at the human ship again. She could see the young man inside. his life fading away. "Prepare the medical bay," she ordered. "We are bringing him aboard." Her crew was shocked. They argued with her, but Zarathel would not change her mind. She had made her choice. She would save this human, even if it meant trouble with her own people. The alien ship's tractor beam pulled Jake's ship into a large bay. Jake watched in amazement as doors closed around him. Air filled the bay with a soft hissing sound. Through his window, he saw tall figures in strange clothes walking toward his ship. They moved differently than humans, more like cats than people. Jake tried to stand up but fell back into his chair. The lack of air had made him very weak. His vision was blurry and his chest hurt with each breath. The door of his ship opened with a loud crack. Cold air rushed in, but it was clean air that he could breathe. The aliens wore masks over their faces. One of them, taller than the others, came close to Jake. Through the mask, he could see golden eyes looking at him with something that might have been kindness. The alien reached out a hand toward him. Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. His body was shutting down from the cold and lack of air. The tall alien said something in a musical language he could not understand. Then everything went black. As Jake fell unconscious, Zarathel caught him in her arms. She could feel how weak and damaged his body was. Normal medical treatment would not be enough to save him. She would have to use the life bond, a procedure her people only used in the most desperate situations. It would link her life to his, keeping him alive but connecting them forever. Zarathel carried the dying human to her medical bay, knowing that her choice would change both their lives in ways she could not imagine. Jake woke up feeling strange. His body felt different, like it belonged to someone else. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling made of some material he had never seen before. It glowed softly with its own light. Everything around him was curved and smooth, very different from the straight lines and hard corners of human ships. He tried to sit up and found that he could move easily. The weakness and pain from before were gone. He felt stronger than he had in years. Jake looked down at his hands and saw thin lines of green light under his skin. They pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. A door opened, and the tall alien from before walked in. She had removed her mask, and Jake could see her face clearly. Her skin was dark green with scales that caught the light. Her eyes were golden and larger than human eyes. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien, but somehow familiar. When she came close, Jake felt something strange happen in his mind. He could sense emotions that were not his own. The alien felt worried, curious, and something else he could not name. It was like hearing someone else's thoughts very quietly. The alien spoke in her musical language. Jake did not understand the words, but somehow he knew she was asking if he felt better. The knowledge came from somewhere outside his own mind. "I can understand you," Jake said, surprised. "Not your words, but what you mean." The alien nodded. She touched a device on her wrist, and suddenly she was speaking English, though her voice had a strange accent. The translation device learns quickly. "I am Captain Zarathel of the ship Voidheart. You are Jake Morrison, according to the information in your ship's computer." "How long was I unconscious?" Jake asked. 3 weeks, Zarathel replied. "Your body was very damaged. We had to use a special procedure to save your life." Jake touched the green lines on his skin. "What did you do to me?" Zarathel looked uncomfortable. "We call it a life bond. I shared part of my life force with you to keep you alive." It is not something we do lightly." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means we are connected now. You can feel my emotions when I am near, and I can feel yours. The bond cannot be broken." Zarathel sat down in a chair next to his bed. "My people usually only form such bonds with family or life partners. What I did for you was unusual." Jake felt a wave of sadness and worry from Zarathel. She was in trouble because of him. "Your people are angry with you." "Yes. We have laws about contact with other species. I broke those laws to save you." Zarathel looked at him with her golden eyes. "But I do not regret it." Over the next few days, Jake learned about the Catherians. They were an old race that had been traveling through space for hundreds of years. Their home planet was dying, and they lived on ships like nomads. They were peaceful but kept to themselves, avoiding contact with younger species like humans. The bond between Jake and Zarathel grew stronger each day. When she was happy, he felt happy. When he was excited about learning something new, she felt that excitement too. It was strange, but not unpleasant. Jake found that he could understand her people's language better through the bond, and she learned about human ways of thinking. Jake also discovered that the bond had changed his body. He was stronger and faster than before. His mind worked differently, too. He could solve problems in new ways, combining human thinking with something alien. The green lines under his skin were not just decoration. They were part of his circulatory system now, mixing his blood with some kind of energy from Zarathel. The other Catherians on the ship did not like Jake. They whispered when he walked past and stopped talking when he came near. Through the bond, he could feel Zarathel's sadness about this. Her crew respected her, but thought she had made a terrible mistake. Tekvar, her second officer, was the most unfriendly. He was shorter than Zarathel, but broader, with darker scales and silver eyes. He spoke English well, but always sounded angry when talking to Jake. "You do not belong here, human," Tekvar said one day when Jake was in the ship's common area. "The captain has put herself in danger for you." "I did not ask for this," Jake replied, "but I am grateful to be alive. Gratitude means nothing if it destroys our people's safety," Tekvar said. "The High Council will punish the captain because of you." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he also felt Zarathel's calm through the bond. She was nearby and could sense the argument. Her emotions helped him stay peaceful. "Maybe I can help," Jake said. "I know things about humans that might be useful to your people." Tekvar laughed bitterly. "What could a primitive species teach us?" Before Jake could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and the crew ran to their stations. Zarathel's voice came over the communication system, speaking in Catherian. Through the bond, Jake understood that another ship was approaching fast. Jake ran to the bridge where Zarathel stood looking at a large screen. On it was another Catherian ship, bigger and more heavily armed than the Voidheart. Its dark hull was covered with weapon ports and armor plating. "Patrol ship Dark Wind," Zarathel said to Jake without looking away from the screen. "They have come to take me back to face judgment." Jake felt her fear and determination through the bond. She was afraid of what would happen to her, but she was more worried about what they might do to him. The patrol ship's captain appeared on the screen. He was an older Catherian with scars on his face and cold silver eyes. "Captain Zarathel," the patrol captain said, "you will prepare to be boarded. The High Council demands your immediate return for questioning about the unauthorized contact." "Understood, Captain Morvek," Zarathel replied formally. As the communication ended, Jake touched her arm. Through the bond, he sent her a feeling of support and determination. Whatever happens, we face it together. Zarathel looked at him with surprise. The bond was working both ways now. She could feel his courage and stubbornness, very human traits, that somehow made her feel stronger. Yes, she said quietly. Together. But as the patrol ship moved closer, both Jake and Zarathel wondered what price they would pay for the bond that had saved his life. The green lines under Jake's skin pulsed brighter, as if responding to the stress. Whatever the High Council decided, there was no going back now. They were connected forever, for better or worse. The Void Heart shuddered as the patrol ship's tractor beam locked onto it. Jake's new life as the first human to be bonded with an alien was about to face its first real test. The Catherian patrol ship was 3 times larger than the Void Heart. When Jake walked through its corridors with Zarathel, he felt like an ant in a cathedral. The walls were covered with symbols that glowed and shifted like living writing. Other. Catherians stared at him as they passed, their golden and silver eyes full of curiosity and suspicion. Captain Morvek led them to a meeting room where 3 other high-ranking Catherians waited. These were members of the High Council, the leaders of their people. They were older than anyone Jake had seen, with scales that had turned almost black with age. Their eyes held the wisdom and weariness of centuries. Captain Zarathel, the eldest council member, spoke. His voice was deep and sad. You have violated our most sacred law. Contact with primitive species is forbidden for good reasons. Through the bond, Jake felt Zarathel's shame and defiance mixed together. She stood straight and proud, but her emotions churned like a storm. I saved a life, she said simply. That is also our law. You used the life bond on an alien creature, another council member said with disgust. You have contaminated yourself, and possibly our entire species. Jake stepped forward, ignoring the way the council members recoiled from him. I did not ask for this, but I am grateful. Maybe you should hear what I have to say before you judge. The council members looked shocked that he had spoken. Through the bond, Jake felt Zarathel's pride mixed with fear for his safety. The human speaks, the eldest said with surprise. The bond has given it intelligence. I had intelligence before, Jake replied firmly. Humans are not animals. We build ships, explore space, and solve problems. We might be younger than your people, but we are not primitive. Before the council could respond, new alarms began ringing. A young Catherian officer ran into the room and spoke rapidly in their language. Through the bond and his growing understanding of their speech, Jake caught the meaning. Human ships had been detected approaching the system. The main screen showed 3 human vessels moving toward them. They were military ships, bristling with weapons and armor. At their head was the UES Liberty, a heavy cruiser that Jake recognized from news reports. These were not explorers or traders. These were warships. They must be looking for me, Jake said. When my ship did not return, they would have sent a search party. Captain Morvek's scarred face was grim. 3 warships is not a search party. This is an invasion force. The eldest council member stood up, his ancient body moving slowly. The humans have followed their lost member here. This is exactly why we avoid contact. Now we face war. Jake felt panic through the bond from Zarathel. Her people were peaceful. They had advanced technology, but their ships were not built for war. The human ships, while smaller and less advanced, were designed for fighting. "Let me talk to them," Jake said quickly. "I can prevent this." "No human will speak for us," Captain Morvek said angrily. "But I am not just human anymore," Jake replied, touching the green lines on his skin. "The bond makes me part Catherian, too. I can understand both sides." The eldest council member studied Jake with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "Perhaps the contamination can serve a purpose." "Very well, human. Prevent this war, and we will consider your words about the bond." The communication came through from the human ships moments later. On the screen appeared Admiral Kate Hudson, a stern woman with gray hair and the bearing of a career military officer. Behind her stood Commander Ryan Blake, and a woman Jake did not recognize. "This is Admiral Hudson of the United Earth Fleet," she said formally. "We are searching for engineer Jake Morrison, who went missing in this system 3 weeks ago. We have detected his ship's signature aboard your vessels." Jake stepped into view of the camera. Admiral Hudson's eyes widened with shock. "Admiral, this is Jake Morrison. I am alive and well. These people saved my life." "Mr. Morrison," Admiral Hudson said carefully, "are you speaking freely? Are you being held against your will?" Jake felt Zarathel's tension through the bond. One wrong word could start a war between two species. "I am free, Admiral. These are the Catherians. They rescued me when my ship failed. They are peaceful people." The woman behind Admiral Hudson stepped forward. She had dark hair and intelligent eyes behind glasses. "Mr. Morrison, I am Dr. Lisa Park, xenobiologist. Can you explain the unusual energy readings we are detecting from your position?" Jake looked at Zarathel, feeling her permission through the bond. "The Catherians had to use a special medical procedure to save my life. It created a connection between me and their captain. I am still human, but I am also something new." Dr. Park's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity, but Admiral Hudson looked worried. "What kind of connection?" "A life bond," Zarathel said, stepping into view. "Jake Morrison was dying. To save him, I shared my life force with his. We are now permanently linked." The humans on the screen stared at Zarathel with a mixture of awe and fear. She was clearly alien, but her dignity and grace were unmistakable. When she spoke, her words carried the authority of command. "Captain," Admiral Hudson said formally, "we appreciate you saving our citizen. However, we must understand the full implications of this bond." Before anyone could answer, another alarm sounded. This time it was different, more urgent. A Catherian officer's voice echoed through the ship, speaking rapidly. Jake felt terror spike through the bond from Zarathel. "What is it?" he asked her. "Devourers," she whispered. "The enemy that destroyed our homeworld. They have found us." On the tactical screen, new contacts appeared at the edge of the system. Dozens of dark ships moved toward them with mechanical precision. They were angular and ugly, built for one purpose: destruction. These were the machines that had forced the Catherians to become wanderers in space. Admiral Hudson saw the new contacts on her own screens. "Unknown vessels detected. All ships, battle stations." "Admiral, wait," Jake said urgently. "Those are not Catherian ships. They are the enemy of both our peoples. The Devourers consume everything they find. Organic life, technology, entire planets." Dr. Park was studying her scanner readings. The new ships are showing massive energy signatures. Their hulls appear to be some kind of self-repairing metal. Captain Morveck's voice was grim. 47. Devourer vessels confirmed. They have found our fleet. Through the bond, Jake felt not just Zarathel's fear, but the fear of her entire crew. These machines had haunted the Cytherians for generations. They had taken their home, scattered their people, and now they had come to finish what they started. How? Many ships in your fleet? Admiral Hudson asked. 12, the eldest council member answered. We are not warriors. Our ships are built for exploration and survival, not war. Admiral Hudson was quiet for a moment, calculating odds. 3 human warships and 12 Cytherian vessels against 47 enemy ships. The math was not good. Admiral, Jake said, the Cytherians have knowledge and technology that could help. Humans have weapons and tactics. Together, we might have a chance. Together? Commander Blake spoke for the first time. We just met these aliens 5 minutes ago. Jake felt a surge of determination through the bond. Zarathel's emotions mixed with his own, creating something stronger than either could feel alone. The bond lets us coordinate in ways neither species could manage separately. It might be the key to victory. Admiral Hudson looked at the approaching enemy fleet, then at Jake and Zarathel standing together on the alien bridge. The green lines under Jake's skin pulsed brighter as stress activated the bond. Very well, she said finally. We will fight together. God help us all. As the Devourer fleet drew closer, Jake realized that the bond that had saved his life might now be the key to saving both their species. The connection he shared with Zarathel would be tested in the fires of battle, and the outcome would determine the future of both humans and Cytherians. The Devourer ships moved through space like a plague of metal locusts. Each vessel was the size of a human cruiser, but built from dark materials that seemed to absorb light. Their hulls crawled with mechanical arms and drilling equipment designed to strip apart anything they encountered. Jake stood on the bridge of the Void Heart next to Zarathel, watching the enemy approach on the main screen. Through their bond, he could feel her memories of the day the Devourers had attacked her homeworld. Cities turned to ash, oceans boiled away, millions of Cytherians fleeing in whatever ships they could find. They do not negotiate, Zarathel said quietly. They do not take prisoners. They consume everything and leave nothing behind. Admiral Hudson's voice came through the communication link from the human fleet. Captain Zarathel, we need to know everything about these Devourers. Their weapons, their weaknesses, anything that might help us fight them. The eldest council member, who had introduced himself as High Counselor Vexmar, answered with the weariness of someone who had lived through the First War. They adapt to every weapon we use against them. Their hulls repair damage faster than we can cause it. They learn from every battle and become stronger. Dr. Lisa Park appeared on the screen next to Admiral Hudson. She had been studying the scanner readings of the approaching enemy. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. These ships appear to be partially organic but also mechanical. It is as if someone combined living tissue with advanced robotics. That is exactly what they are, Zarathel said. The Devourers were once a species like us, but they gave up their organic bodies to become machines. They believe that flesh is weakness and only metal is eternal. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. So they were people once? Long ago, High Counselor Vexmar replied. Now they are something else. They consume organic species to fuel their machines and steal technology, to make themselves stronger. They have been doing this for thousands of years. Commander Ryan Blake studied the tactical display showing the two small fleets facing the massive enemy force. 15 ships against 47. We need a miracle. Or we need to think differently, Jake said. Through the bond, he could feel an idea forming. It was not entirely his thought or Zarathel's, but something that came from their connection. The Devourers expect us to fight like separate species, humans using human tactics, Catherians using Catherian tactics. But what if we fight as one? Admiral Hudson looked confused. What do you mean? Jake turned to Zarathel, and she nodded as she understood his idea through the bond. The life bond lets us share thoughts and coordinate actions instantly. No communication, delay, no misunderstanding. If we can extend that somehow... Dr. Park leaned forward with interest. The energy readings from your bond are growing stronger. It appears to be adapting to stress. Perhaps it could be amplified or transmitted to other people. Zarathel touched a control panel on her ship. Our medical bay has equipment that might work. We could try to create temporary connections between human and Catherian officers. That sounds dangerous, Admiral Hudson said with concern. The Devourers will kill us all if we fail. Jake replied simply. The danger of the bond is less than the danger of defeat. High Counselor Vexmar spoke with the other council members in their own language. Jake caught enough through the bond to understand. They were debating whether to allow more contamination of their people. Finally, the old Catherian nodded. We will try this desperate plan. Choose your best officers, Admiral. We will prepare ours. Over the next hour, as the Devourer fleet drew closer, Jake and Zarathel worked with Dr. Park and the Catherian medical team to create temporary bonds between selected humans and Catherians. It was not as deep or permanent as the connection between Jake and Zarathel, but it would allow basic emotional and tactical sharing. Commander Blake was paired with Tekvar, despite the Catherians' obvious dislike of humans. Admiral Hudson formed a link with Captain Morvek. Dr. Park connected with the Catherian chief scientist, a quiet female named Silandra. Each pairing created a bridge between the two species' ways of thinking. Jake felt each new connection form through his bond with Zarathel. It was like watching lights turn on in a dark building. Suddenly, the human and Catherian fleets were not separate forces, but parts of one larger organism. This is remarkable, Admiral Hudson said, her voice filled with wonder. Through her temporary bond with Captain Morvek, she could feel the Catherian appreciation for defensive tactics and patience. I can understand your strategic thinking in ways words could never convey. Captain Morvek nodded, his scarred face showing surprise. And I feel your human instinct for aggressive action and improvisation. Together, these approaches might create something new. The Devourer fleet was now only an hour away from combat range. Their ships moved in perfect formation, coordinated by machine intelligence that made no mistakes. They had fought and defeated hundreds of species using the same efficient tactics, but they had never faced bonded humans and Catherians before. Jake felt the battle plan forming through the network of temporary bonds. It was not a human plan or a Catherian plan, but something that combined the best of both. Human ships would use their speed and weapons to draw the Devourers into traps, while Catherian vessels used their advanced shields and energy weapons to provide support. Incoming transmission from the Devourer fleet, the Voidheart's communication, officer announced. The main screen showed the image of what had once been a living being. The Devourer commander was now more machine than anything else. Its original form was impossible to determine. Metal plates covered most of its body, and glowing red sensors had replaced its eyes. When it spoke, its voice was flat and emotionless. Organic vessels, you will surrender your technology and biological resources. Resistance will result in total consumption. You have 1 minute to comply. Admiral Hudson responded with the iron, in her voice that had made her a fleet commander. This is Admiral Kate Hudson of the United Earth Fleet. We do not surrender to murderers. If you want a fight, you will get one. The Devourer commander showed no emotion at the refusal. Your defiance is noted. Consumption will begin immediately. The communication ended, and the enemy fleet began to accelerate toward them. Their ships spread out in a pattern designed to surround and destroy the smaller human and Cytherian force. But Jake felt something through the bond network that the Devourers could not detect. Confidence. Not the reckless confidence of youth, but the calm assurance that came from perfect coordination. Every human and Cytherian captain knew exactly what their allies were thinking and planning. All ships, begin Operation Unity, Admiral Hudson commanded. The battle was about to begin, and Jake realized that win or lose, nothing would ever be the same. The bonds between humans and Cytherians would either save both species or they would die together as one people. Through his connection with Zarathel, he felt her hand take his as they prepared to face the greatest threat either of their species had ever encountered. The green lines under his skin pulsed with energy as the bond network activated fully. Whatever happened next would determine the future of organic life in the galaxy. The first wave of Devourer ships struck like a metal storm. Their energy weapons lit up space with deadly beams designed to cut through ship hulls like paper. But the combined human and Cytherian fleet was no longer where the enemy expected them to be. Through the bond network, every ship moved as if controlled by one mind. Human vessels darted between the larger Cytherian ships like fighters protecting bombers. When a Devourer beam aimed at a human cruiser, a Cytherian ship would shift its powerful shields to block the attack. When Cytherian vessels needed time to charge their weapons, human ships would swarm the enemy with missile attacks. Jake stood on the bridge of the Void Heart, his consciousness partially merged with Zarathel through their deep bond. Through her, he could feel the emotions and thoughts of every bonded pair in the fleet. It was overwhelming at first, like trying to listen to a dozen conversations at once, but gradually he learned to focus on what mattered. Devourer Squadron. Approaching from starboard! Captain Morveck's voice came through the communication link. But Jake already knew this through the bond network. He could feel Admiral Hudson's tactical response forming before she spoke it aloud. Blake, take your group and hit them from below while they focus on Morveck's shields, Hudson commanded. Commander Blake, linked with Tekvar, executed a maneuver that was part human aggression and part Cytherian precision. His 3 ships dove under the Devourer formation, while Tekvar's vessel provided covering fire with surgical accuracy. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their machine intelligence was confused by the hybrid tactics. Every time they calculated a response to human-style attacks, the ships would switch to Cytherian defensive patterns. When they adjusted for Cytherian behavior, sudden human improvisation would surprise them. But the enemy was learning, and they had superior numbers. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 2 more would take its place. The combined fleet was holding together, but they were being slowly pushed back. Jake felt fear spike through the bond network as one of the human destroyers took critical damage. The ship was venting atmosphere and falling out of formation. Through the links, he could feel the terror of its crew as devourer boarding pods launched toward the crippled vessel. "We cannot save them," Zarathel said quietly, her golden eyes sad. "The boarding pods will reach them before we can assist." But Jake felt something else through the bond. A wild, desperate plan forming in the mind of the destroyer's captain. The human officer was not going to surrender his ship to the machines. "Captain Williams is going to ram," Jake said with sudden understanding. The destroyer changed course, accelerating directly toward the largest devourer ship. Its engines glowed, white-hot as the captain pushed them beyond safe limits. The devourers tried to destroy the incoming ship, but their weapons could not stop its suicidal charge. The explosion when the destroyer hit the devourer command ship lit up space like a new star. Both vessels were destroyed instantly, but the blast damaged 3 other enemy ships. Through the bond network, Jake felt the grief and pride of every human and Catherian as they honored the sacrifice of the destroyer's crew. "We cannot win by trading ships," Admiral Hudson said grimly. "They have too many." High Counselor Vexmar spoke from his position on the Catherian flagship. "Perhaps it is time to consider retreat. We have saved who we can." But Jake felt something new through his bond with Zarathel. The stress of battle was changing their connection, making it stronger and deeper. The green lines under his skin were glowing brighter, and he could see similar changes in Zarathel's scales. They were becoming something new, something that was neither fully human nor fully Catherian. "Wait," Jake said as an idea formed. "Dr. Park, what are your readings on the bond network?" Dr. Park's voice came through the link, excitement cutting through the fear. "Remarkable! The connections are growing stronger under stress. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our database. It is as if the bonds are evolving in real time." Jake looked at Zarathel and saw his own understanding reflected in her golden eyes. The devourers adapt to individual species, but they have never encountered a hybrid consciousness. What if we make the bond network stronger? What if we all become something new? "That could be extremely dangerous," Dr. Park warned. "We do not know what full bonding might do to human or Catherian physiology." "The current plan is not working," Commander Blake said through his link with Tekvar. "If we are going to try something desperate, now is the time." Admiral Hudson was quiet for a long moment, feeling the weight of command through her temporary bond with Captain Morvac. She could sense the Catherian captain's thoughts, his willingness to try anything to save both their peoples. "Do it," she said finally. "Make us all one." Jake and Zarathel moved to the Void Heart's medical bay where the equipment that had saved. Jake's life waited, but this time, instead of creating a single bond, they worked to amplify the existing network. Every human and Catherian officer with a temporary link would have it made permanent and strengthened. The process was painful. Jake felt each new connection form like lightning in his mind. But with each bond, the fleet became more coordinated, more unified. Human creativity merged with Catherian wisdom, Catherian patience, combined with human determination. When the transformation was complete, the fleet moved as one organism. Ships that had been separate vessels became like cells in a body, each knowing its role without communication. The devourers noticed the change immediately. Their sensors detected energy patterns they had never encountered. For the first time in the battle, the machine intelligence showed something like confusion. The bonded fleet struck back with tactics that defied all logic. Ships would separate to draw fire, then merge formations to concentrate firepower. Human vessels would shield Catherian ships at the exact moment needed, while Catherian energy weapons would fire through gaps in space that human pilots created. With impossible precision, Jake, now more deeply bonded with Zarathel than ever before, found himself piloting a hybrid fighter that was part human technology and part Catherian bioengineering. Through the fleet-wide bond, he could coordinate with every other pilot simultaneously, creating attack patterns that the Devourers could not predict or counter. The tide of battle began to turn. Devourer ships, designed to fight individual species, with predictable tactics, could not adapt fast enough to the hybrid consciousness they faced. Their machine logic was based on pattern recognition, but the bonded fleet created patterns that had never existed before. As the last Devourer ship exploded under concentrated fire from the unified fleet, Jake felt a wave of triumph and exhaustion. Through the bond network. They had won, but at a cost. Every human and Catherian officer in the fleet had been permanently changed. They were no longer purely their original species, but something new. Dr. Park's readings confirmed what Jake already knew through the bond. The energy patterns in their bodies had stabilized, but they were fundamentally different from baseline, humans or Catherians. They were the first members of a new kind of being. "What have we become?" Admiral Hudson asked, looking at her hands where faint lines of light now pulsed beneath the skin. "We have become what we needed to be, High Counselor," Vexmar replied. The ancient Catherian's voice held wonder instead of fear. "We have become one people." In the months that followed, as the bonded fleet returned to human space with their Catherian allies, Jake and Zarathel found themselves serving as ambassadors between two species that were slowly becoming one. The bond that had begun as a desperate medical procedure had evolved into something that would reshape the galaxy. They established the Treaty of New Horizons, creating the first truly integrated human Catherian colonies. Ships were designed using technology from both species. Children born to bonded parents showed characteristics of both races, creating a new generation that belonged fully to neither world and completely to both. Jake stood on the observation deck of their new hybrid ship, watching stars that belonged to neither human nor Catherian space. Zarathel stood beside him, their bond now so complete that they could share thoughts as easily as words. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up what you were to become what we are?" Jake considered the question as he felt the presence of their crew through the bond network that connected them all. Humans and Catherians working together as one people, exploring the galaxy with combined wisdom and courage. "No," he said finally. "I think this is what evolution looks like. Not changing to survive, but changing to become something better." Through the ship's sensors, they detected signals from a distant star system. New life, new civilizations waiting to be discovered. The bonded fleet would meet them not as conquerors or as separate species, but as something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. They were proof that sometimes the greatest strength came not from remaining pure, but from willing transformation in the name of something greater than oneself. The bond that had saved one. Human's life had become the foundation for a new kind of civilization among the stars.